All right, so we're going to talk about constants and what they are actually used for. This is a holdover from the language C, and it's used a lot in object-oriented programming. You can declare a constant variable. It will initiate a value, and that value will never change. So here's a pretty common application of this. Mathematics has all sorts of constant values that you definitely do not want to tamper with. So this is program 10. We're going to create a constant. All right, I actually already put it over here. So we're going to create a constant, and it is a float, and we're going to call it pi, which is the good old number you all probably learned in a geometry class, 3.14159. And then what we'll do is create a float for r for radius, and then make a little formula here that will do pi times the radius squared, and it'll tell you the area of a circle. And you do this, and there you go. So the area of a circle with radius 2 is 12.5664. So how about that? So this is an example of what const is best at. As I said, you can pass by constant reference, but very rarely does anyone actually. I feel there are better ways to deal with things than passing by constant reference. Let's see. So that prevents users from altering the value of pi. You don't want people going into your code and like saying, "Hey, bro, why don't we set pi equal to 3?" And fun fact: Indiana actually is the Indiana Pi Bill. So one of the fun oddball moments in history. This did totally legit happen in Indiana of all places. In 1897, the Indiana General Assembly tried to they basically tried to pass a law that said that you could do this, and a consequence was that pi basically would equal 3. And the only reason it didn't pass was a professor from Purdue University happened to be there when they were going to vote on it. And he basically said, "Bros, seriously, do not do this. This is stupid." And people are going to make fun of the state of Indiana for like all time if we like legit try to do this. And people will still make fun of them because they like try to. And so anyway, there you go. That's the fun random historical tidbit of the day.
Did the state of Indiana forget what pi does?
The best answer I can give you is it's Indiana, bro. And I mean, not to be overly mean about it. And let's face it, Missouri isn't exactly like radically different than Indiana in a lot of ways, but so we don't exactly have a lot of moral high ground here. But the point is, yeah, they like legit tried to do that, and it was a stupid idea for a variety of reasons. Anyway,
that made my day. Thank you.
yes, that's these are the kinds of things that I think it's worth bringing to people's attention. Anyway, passing by reference that has another advantage. It can actually return multiple values. So the thing about a function, what a function does is it will return a value. With passing by reference, you can kind of sort of jury rig it where you have one function that does one thing, but you can kind of sneak it in there where you return multiple things at the same time. So when we return a value to our box, all references to that box are going to be updated. And so if even though the return value is a single item, we can change multiple parameters by doing a pass by reference. So if that doesn't quite make sense to you yet, let's look at this example and see what happens here. But so what do we got? So we've got a void here. So it's a function that's not actually going to return something. So what we're going to do is we're going to do int days. That's going to be that's actually going to be a we're just going to pass that directly as an argument. but then we're going to pass by reference and have int weeks and int remaining days. And what this function is going to do is it's going to create weeks, which is just days divided by 7. And then there'll be remaining days, which is days modulo 7, which basically means like 15 is a remainder of 1 modulo 7, because like it's basically 1 off from the nearest multiple of 7, which would be 14. So 15 days is like 2 weeks and 1 day. So what this function is basically going to do is if I put in the number 15, it's going to tell me that that is 2 weeks, and then there will be 1 day left over. That's what this would do. So then what we can do is we can say we'll create an int total days. We'll call that 100. We'll have int for the num of weeks. We'll have an int for the number of days. And then we're going to execute the days to weeks days function. We're going to pass total days, which is actually 100. And then num weeks is going to be this integer, and then num days is going to be that integer. So those are going to be references. Num weeks and num days are the reference to weeks and remaining days in this function. So those will both have the same number. And then what we could do is we do something like this, where we could output num weeks and num days, and those are going to be references to weeks and remaining days from this function. And so this is a function that doesn't actually return anything, but we're kind of jury rigging it to kind of sort of output 2 results at the same time. So if we run this, 100 weeks is the same, 100 days is the same as 14 weeks and 2 days. I suppose the code still works. It mildly bothers me. We could do this and say 100 days. I've been home all day with my kids, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to like super proofread this code as much as I'd like, but we can do this here. And 100 days is the same as 14 weeks and 2 days. And let's put a space there. This is really just, we're not changing the functionality. I'm just being OCD and wanting the output to look pretty. There, how about that? 100 days is the same as 14 weeks and 2 days. So there you go. Let's see. So in effect, this function returns 2 values. Usually passing by value is good to do by default. It does reduce the chances for errors overall. If you have a good reason for passing by reference, it opens up more options. So basically the moral of the story is, like I said, back in the day, passing by reference was kind of more of a big deal because people are really trying to save on memory space, which nowadays is not exactly like, in an era of gigabytes and terabytes, we don't exactly have to be stingy about how many bits of memory we're using like we used to be. And the kinds of things we'll be doing in this class are the slowdown in performance is not going to be noticeable enough that it's going to make a difference from our perspective. Now, if you all go like super highfalutin into computer science and become some like ginormous database manager for like Google or something, yeah, you might want to do things that'll really improve performance time, but at least for the purposes of this class, I guess what I'm saying is I spent a lot of time teaching you how to do something, and I'm now telling you, you really don't necessarily have to do it, but it's a thing. And there you go. Now you know about it. So there you go.